Hello, we are live, and yes, we are having a live stream. Contrary to popular belief, I am going to do the presentation today, and I do not have a flu bug this week. That was last week. So, mea culpa, whatever you want to, tail between my legs, all of those wonderful things. We are doing the live stream. So I'm hoping that you're able to show up today. And if not, at least watch the recording, because I'm going to go ahead with the live stream, even though a message just got sent out to you saying that there was no live stream today because I've got a flu bug. That was last week, and I did not change it because I was sick. So I apologize. Very, very sorry for miscommunicating. So I hope that you can join us. I'm going to start it at just the top of the hour. I would love to know in the chat who is here, who actually showed up, even though, or despite the fact that they got an email saying that that I'm not doing the live stream today. Definitely doing the live stream. This is going to be actually very important for a lot of people that are finding themselves stuck in their search, or that they don't exactly have the clarity that they need in order to get their next role. So this is going to be really, I think it's going to be really impactful. So whether or not we have a lot of people show up today, it's okay, because I know that I will record this and send it out to many people in the future, because this is one of these, I guess, aha moments for myself, coming up with the information for this live stream, for this presentation. And please let me know if, or let me know that you are here, and just maybe let me know your first name and the city in which you are logging in from. Love to know that. All right, we've just got about one more minute. I'm gonna catch a little, got a little bit of a dry mouth this morning, or afternoon if you're on the East Coast, or in the UK, EMEA, UK, EU, all of those wonderful things. I know that we have people coming in from all over the world. So let me know who's here. Go ahead and put down in the chat who has made it today. Also, just an FYI, in our dry run, in our run through earlier this morning. All right. Hello, Sylvia. Hi. In our run through, I realized this is going to be actually a pretty quick presentation, meaning that it was only about 20-25 minutes. However, of course, I'm going to be available here to answer your questions. So if you've got questions that have been burning, whether it's something that is related to this particular topic or not, I would love to know your questions, because this will give me the opportunity of really just expanding the information and answering those things that you're experiencing in your search, or that you just want to know about the job market. Even if you, for instance, if you have not really been in the job market all that long, or if this is the first time that you have actually looked for a long time, I'd love to help clarify the job market for you today. All right. It is the top of the hour. We've got Emmanuel. We've got, oh my gosh, what a beautiful name. Leilani? Is that right? I don't know if that's right. Leilani? It's a gorgeous name. I like that. Okay. Okay, let's get started. So today, I first want to start with giving you some background of how I came up with the material for today. This content is actually very new for me. Haven't presented it ever before. And it comes from a client of mine that just accepted a role last Wednesday, a week ago Wednesday. And it was very interesting because there was a lot with this new role that he took on that he was a little unsure about until the very last moment, when he decided to accept the role and turn in his 2 weeks notice at the company that he's working at presently. So I bring this up because he was concerned. He's an engineering leader, and he has pretty much always worked for very large companies, industry giants, and kind of legacy engineering. In other words, almost like a commodity engineering. So he's been doing this for a long time, all of his career. And of course, he wanted to get into a more executive role because he's middle management right now, and he wants to get into executive leadership. So his main concern in taking this job was that he had an ultimate goal in the back of his head, or actually in the front of his head, that he was wanting to get into the renewable energy sector. And he wasn't making a lot of headway, a lot of traction. So he ended up getting this role that was not in renewable energy. And what he was worried about was never being able to get into that industry or that sector, because he's mid-50s, and every company that he's always worked in has been 15, 20 years. It's been a long time for each of these roles that he's had, but he hasn't moved companies very often. So he was under the impression that since he's mid-50s and he's taking this role with a new company, and honestly, moving his wife up to Milwaukee from Kentucky, and they have a daughter, but she's going to be graduating college next year. So he was worried that if he took this role, which really would be more in the healthcare sector, that he wouldn't be able to get into renewable energy, which has been his passion. So in looking at his end state of wanting to be in renewable energy, and looking at this company that he's going to be joining, which is still a multi-billion-dollar company. However, he would be creating a brand new product with a brand new company that just got acquired, and he would be building this division from scratch. So he's going to be hiring a team from scratch, building his own team, and then building his own product, and then putting it out there in the market. And really, it's up to him as to whether he wants to stay in that division and really build it out worldwide, or if he wants to move elsewhere within the company. But he was worried that he would never get to his end state. So in thinking about it, I realized that this new role, even though it is not in renewable energy, will give him a lot of the skills and experience that he needs to get into renewable energy, which is awesome. And I told him, listen, in a year and a half, 2 years, you've got the experience, you've got the scope of responsibility, and most likely the impact that you will need in order to get into a renewable energy company, because most of the renewable energy companies these days are startups or small businesses versus some really large companies like he's been in the past. And so his next role, and this is the reason he decided to say yes, his next role is actually going to prepare him to get to that end state. So for today, what I'm going to show you is I have a lot of questions to ask you and some exercises that I want you to do that will help you determine what is that end goal for you at your retirement party, whether that's 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 25, 30 years from now. Really, what do you want to have accomplished? What impact do you want? What industry do you want to get into if that's a goal for you? Really, what does that end state look like? And then how do we get you to that end state, right? So that every step in your career going forward from now on is going to be on purpose. It's going to be intentional, and it's with the design of getting you to that end state. And something else too, in putting this information together, I realized that any regrets that I might have in my career, but really in my life in general, is stuff that I didn't do, that I should have done, that I didn't want to take the chance. Not stuff that I've done that I regret it. There's a few of those, especially when I was 19. But most part, it's the stuff that I didn't take on. It's the stuff I didn't do. So I would like you to start thinking about the stuff that you want to do so that when your retirement party comes, you're not worried, or you're not regretting the things that you didn't do, or the steps you didn't take, the chances that you didn't take. So I've got this great information for you today. And I purposefully put a lot of words into each slide. Now, that's going to be a little busy when I'm talking it through with you. However, I did that because I want you to take the PDF at the end of this presentation. We're going to be giving you the PDF of these slides, and I didn't want them to just be skeleton bullet points so that if you look at it a month or a year later, you'll forget what we talked about. So I want to put plenty of information so that you've got the context of the exercises that you need to do in order to really get you to that end goal at the end of your career. All right. So Mara, hello. Curtis, hello. All right. Oh, thank you. And let us get started. Let me see here. I'm going to get the slides. There we go. All right, here we go. And I did notice in the dry run today that I actually needed to change where my picture is several different times. So I'm going to be small because the way that we put this together, the way that my graphic designer put it together in this PowerPoint, I need to kind of move backwards and forwards. So hopefully we can get through, and also put your questions in chat as you're thinking of them, so that if they're not answered by my staff, and my staff is going to be Clay and Philip, Clay Schnitker, Philip Brown, and also Lacey. Lacey Schicky is actually our admin / office manager / CFO. So, or Wonder Woman, as I like to call her. So then let's talk about today. It's building your own legacy. It's how to end up in the winner's circle. And give your questions in the chat so that I can read them. Actually, Lacey will probably email or text them to me, and I'll check my phone at the end of the presentation. I'll answer those questions for you. And again, this is going to be a relatively short, it's not going to be an hour and 15 minutes like we've had in the past. It's going to be maybe a half hour or so. But I do want to answer any questions that you've got about job searching. All right? All right, here we go. So who is this for? That's actually what this says here. So it's for if you don't know what you want to do next in your career. Maybe that's a little fuzzy. Or if you've got ambitions for your future, in other words, you want to make some big steps going forward, and you want to know how to do that. And then if you're stalled in your career search, if you're just not making a lot of traction, what I've found is that the people that are really clear on what they want to do next get a job much faster, and they get a better job. They get something that is much more in line with what they would love to do. And then also, if you want to be strategic in your job search and not just doing things randomly, all right? So let's see, let's get into it. Again, this is actually something that I just mentioned, that people who have a lot of clarity get a job much faster than people who have a vague understanding of what they want to do next. All right. Okay, let's get you that clarity today. And I'm going to ask you at the end of the presentation if I've succeeded in gaining you clarity, or if you're just going to have to go through this exercise by yourself, really think about it, maybe over the weekend, maybe next week, but really get some clarity in your search, both from a long-term perspective and also as a next step. All right. So again, most people tell me that, and actually when we do our branding program with our clients and we do branding for them, they fill out a very lengthy, arduous resume application because I want to know everything that they've done and everywhere that they've been. And I really want to get an idea of who they are as an executive, as a leader, as a highly skilled professional. Really, I want to know everything about them so that I can position them correctly in the marketplace. And one of the questions that I have in the resume application is the amount of clarity that you've had in your search, and really what those steps have been in your career. So a lot of people tell me that in their career, they have taken jobs that have just basically fallen in their lap. They have been, they've just been presented with these opportunities, or maybe they've said, yeah, I could do that job. And then they apply and then they get the job, but it really isn't anything that they intended to get in the beginning of their search. And also many times it's a job that someone has presented you that knows you and says, oh, you're going to be great for that. Now that could be a position within the same company that you're working at, or it could be a position that is presented to you from a friend or a colleague, and then you just kind of land it. So what I would want you to think about is let's do this on purpose instead of just randomly or by happenstance. All right. So we're going to start with the end goal. We're going to start at your, I guess, your retirement party and work our way backwards. All right. So at the end of your career, and feel free to take notes right now. Start writing this stuff down. What type of role would you like to be in? You would want the function. Of course, by function, I mean operations, marketing, sales, finance, IT. Pick the function, pick your job activities, which might take you a little longer than this presentation. Pick out and as far as activities, what is it that you want to do every day? The kind of stuff that when you do it, you lose track of time. That's what I'm looking for. And also the impacts that you want to make. So thinking about the rest of your career, what kind of impacts do you want to make? You don't have to say a certain dollar amount or a certain number of people that you lead or anything like that, but really just give an idea of what those impacts are. In other words, for instance, do you want to create a great client impression or customer experience? Maybe you want to lead an organization where you are affecting people's lives within that organization by coaching or mentoring them. Think about if you want to be able to save a company significant amount of money in order to make them healthy and make them profitable. That might be something. Or if you're in a revenue generating role like sales or marketing, then what do you want to bring? Do you want to get a smaller company into a market leading status? Do you want to get a company that needs digital transformation to really evolve into this next new world as people are finding out that things are evolving pretty quickly? Not only do employees want to be treated differently, like work remotely, but also customers want to do things differently. Sometimes it's self-service versus brick and mortar kind of thing. Maybe it's online, maybe it's digital commerce. So then I wouldn't want you, though, to pick the level of your final role. In other words, don't say to yourself, I want to be in the C-suite by the time I retire. You don't want to do that because you don't know what the size of company will be that you will end your career in, unless the size of company is really important to you. And if it is, then possibly you could say you wanted to be in the C-suite, depending on where you're at now, how many years you have left in your career, and then what size company do you want to be at that next step. All right. So then again, company and or industry, just like our client that is moving into a healthcare sector because that's the product he's going to be making. Although I believe the company itself is an engineering firm and not in healthcare per se. And so geographic location, if we have any silver lining from the pandemic, it's going to be that now people can work remotely, where in the past, they may not have even considered that as an option. And the companies in the past may not have considered that as an option. But now that the whole world has realized that we can do things, we can do things at home, we could do things remotely and get stuff done. When I remember in the middle of March last year, when everything shut down, when I was talking to some top leaders of very big companies, they were telling me 2 weeks in that they were still managing hour by hour. And then it got to be day by day. And now I would say by about 3 or 4 weeks that those people could then, the companies themselves were actually productive and getting things done. So that is something, the geographic location is now not as big of a barrier. So you don't have to look at local companies only. You could look really throughout the country. And then, of course, select your industry. So think about, as an end state, what are the size people, like annual revenue or number of people? What's the geographic location? What's the industry? All right. And then I want you to choose your boxes. Now, here's what I mean by that. So if you are applying for things online, which I know a lot of you are, even though online jobs, publicly posted jobs, are only 4 to 5% of all of the available opportunities out there. So, but a lot of people spend all of their search time looking at online postings and applying online. Even though 90% of people that apply for positions online, their resume or their application never sees the light of day for a human being. No one reads it 9 out of 10 times. So I'm not a big proponent of really looking online. And here's to me probably the worst part. You're trying to check all of their boxes. When you look at the job descriptors, the requirements for the position, when you think about the talent acquisition person that you're going to be talking to, they're thinking, okay, does this person check all of the boxes, or at least 80% of the boxes of those things that are requirements for the position? All right. So if you created the position from scratch of a perfect job, what are all of those boxes that you would want to check? Or actually, what are all the boxes that you would want a company to check or the role to check? So think about, that's something really worth spending some time on. What are the boxes that you want to have? And so some of the questions that I've got in these next slides are there to help you figure out what those boxes are. All right. So instead of, again, constantly trying to check all of their boxes, instead of doing that, figure out what your boxes would be and what your final job before retirement would look like if you listed all of the boxes in that final role or the final company. All right. It is definitely worth thinking about. And again, I'm going to go through these pretty quickly on slides, but I would want you to take these and really think about them in the next couple of weeks. So I do want to spend a moment talking about the trap of nonprofit. Here's what I've seen. Now, when we talk about our end state, when we talk about the goal for our career, a lot of people that I talk with, a lot of our clients, they say, I'm looking for a company that's really doing great things in the world, that's changing the world for the better. There are a lot of people that want that. I get that. But let me explain from a psychological standpoint the difference between internal rewards and intrinsic rewards versus extrinsic rewards. So when you're doing something, let's say you're volunteering. I know when before we had kids, Brian and I would go to the local animal shelter. It's called Wayside Waifs. And we would volunteer on a weekly basis to go in, clean out the little cages, walk the dogs and play with the cats. And really, I mean, we're big animal people. So we were, and that's actually how we found our firstborn, who was a cocker mix that was a little bit crazy. But we did that because we really believed in the mission of this Wayside Waifs. So a lot of people do want to join a company that they believe in the mission. I get that. When you're thinking about your overall picture in that, if you think about what that mission looks like, here's what I have heard from a lot of my clients that have done that. And that is that they get into a company, a lot of times a nonprofit, because the nonprofits are the ones that really are shouting, this is how we're going to change the world for the better. And so they get in with this nonprofit and they're working, and within 6 to 12 months, they realize, gosh, it just feels like a job. And I'm getting paid 30 to 40% less than what I would make in a for-profit position or a for-profit company. And so it comes down to this psychological principle of when you are volunteering for something, you're getting intrinsic rewards for that. It's intrinsic value. In other words, it's coming from inside of you. Once you start to get a paycheck for the exact same activities, the exact same description of a job, then with that paycheck, that's an extrinsic reward. And when that happens, those intrinsic rewards go away and they are substituted by extrinsic rewards. And so that's, just keep that in mind, that a lot of our clients that come from nonprofit especially say, yeah, I believe in the mission and this is what I did. However, it ended up just being a job. And so now I want to do the job just with another company. So there's a couple of ways that you can think about this. Yeah, definitely. If you want a mission-driven company, doesn't have to be nonprofit. There are a lot of for-profit companies that are doing great things in the world. And think about, okay, what if you earned more money in a for-profit company and then you took that extra money and you either donated it or put it to good use with the missions that you really believe in or that you want to help with. So that's, I'm just saying that you can go into a company whose mission really aligns with your values. Just know that pretty soon you're probably going to get a little frustrated that you're not making as much money as you would be if you were doing the exact same activities with another company. All right. All right. So let's go. So this says, pick the job responsibilities that you would love to perform every day. So I want you to think about what are those activities that when you do them, you lose track of time, that you are so naturally good at that it's effortless and you really love doing it. And before you know it, you spent 10 or 12 hours doing that activity. And, you know, you've got your spouse going, hey, it's time for dinner. Let's go. So think about what those things are that you love to do and would love to do and perform every day. And if you are in your 60s, if you want to work that long, then what does that look like? So what are those activities that you want to continue to do and do more of as well? Pick the skill sets and the strengths that you want to master by the time you retire. What are those skill sets that you're good at and the strengths that you are good at naturally, but that you want to expand? Maybe you want to get more training. Maybe you want to get more experience, higher level experience in those strengths. And it could include leadership and it could just be an individual contributor role, because there's a lot of really great paying individual contributor roles where people make an impact. Now, talk about impacts. You know, it seems like almost all of our clients, if I ask them, what's the number one thing you want to do or get out of your next role? They always say, I want to make a bigger impact. It's not more money. It's really, number one, I want to make a bigger impact. Number two, I want to be in a company where the culture of the company and my own values, my own culture really mesh well. In other words, I'm a good fit for the company. And then third is more money. And then fourth, sometimes is just the time that it takes to get the role, because, you know, you always want to get a role as fast as possible, but at the same time, you want to do your due diligence and make sure that you're finding the right job and not just the right now job. Okay. So once you have those answers of what you want to do at the end of your career, then we work backwards. All right. So let me see if I can move myself over here. So let's determine first your transferable skills and experience factors. All right. So I've got an ultimate keyword toolkit that I put together about 5 years ago that's still highly relevant. And Lacey's going to put that up in the files and make those files available to you. So you're going to see the ultimate keyword toolkit, which has 208 transferable skills and experience factors. All right, let me go ahead and Get those up here. All right. So I've got those, and that's now available to you, so you can pick that up over on the sidebar, I believe. All right. Let me go back here. All right. Good. Now, think about, of those skills or experience factors that you need at the end of your career, what are you missing right now? What skills do you still need to strengthen or add, or experiences that you need to add in order to qualify for your last role? So now that you've defined the final role, the last role in your career, and what that looks like very clearly, keep working on that, and it may morph over time, and that's okay. Put down, though, what you want to do at the end of your career, and then you start to think about what's the gap or gaps. What are the gaps in skill sets and experience factors and strengths that you need to make up as you go forward in your career in order to be able to get that job that would be your final job in your career? Okay. Now, speaking of your last role, I do want to mention something, and that is, just because you spent 15 or 20 years in your present company or your most recent company, it doesn't mean that if you're in your 50s, that your next job is going to be your last. That's usually not the case. In fact, I was able to look at a Bureau of Labor Statistics survey that was conducted in 2018 that said men throughout their lifetime, throughout their career, have held an average of 12 and a half jobs. Women have held a little over 12 jobs. So you're going to, on average, you're probably going to hold 12 jobs or more. So, around that, maybe 10 to 14, something like that. So keep that in mind, and especially because the tenure per employer gets shorter and shorter as every year progresses. And so just understand that most likely, if you're in your mid-50s, this is not going to be your last job. You may have to find another job. It may be because the company changes ownership, changes senior leadership, or it may be that you decide that you want to go in a different direction with your career. You want to move up. Maybe you're not seeing a career path in your current company or in your next company. Just understand that, people move pretty frequently. I'm going to say every 3 or 4 years or so on average, right? So then what experience do you need to have in order to win the last job you want to hold? Again, going back to that end state, that last job, what are you going to need to strengthen? What experience do you need to have in order to move yourself up? For instance, with my the gentleman that I was talking about at the top of the hour, the fact that he is moving into a role that will allow him to build the division from scratch, that's going to be very attractive to the renewable energy sector that he wants to get into. And so just because he's mid-50s doesn't mean he'll never get into renewable energy. It could be that because of the experience that he's going to gain in this new job that is going to be a healthcare product, it still means that he's going to be using emerging technologies. He's going to be in a fast-paced career that he is growing a division from scratch. And that's going to be very attractive to these startups that are in the renewable energy sector. Okay. And in fact, I just put that down. And so this is for your documentation later. Really, there's only a handful of large companies in the renewable energy sector, and there's a lot of startups. So the fact that he will now have really startup experience, even though it's with a large established company, it is something that will be very attractive to the renewable energy sector if he chooses to go that way in a few years, maybe even a year and a half, 2 years. That's going to give him enough information or enough both skills and experience factors. All right, I am going to move over here. All right, so then let's think about leadership skills. What's been the scope of your leadership in the past? If you are a leader, if you have been a leader, how many people have you led, both directly and indirectly if you are managing managers. And then also, what has been the budget responsibility? And then what do you want to have at your last position? So if you are a leader, what's the anticipated scope that you would have in the number of people, both direct and indirect, that would be reporting to you, as well as the budget? So think about what that would look like. And then it will allow you to go, okay, so here's what I want, here's where I'm at, therefore here's the gap, and here's what I need to do from an experience standpoint, or from a skills standpoint, or strengths, and really what that gap is, so that you know in your next role you're going to need to fill that gap. You're going to have to get those strengths, you're going to have to beef up those strengths. You're also going to have to get the experience and also the skills. All right. So if leadership isn't important to you, that's completely fine. We work with a lot of highly skilled professionals, especially in IT, that make really good money, but they don't ever have a team, and that's okay. In fact, some people that have managed people before decide that in the future they don't want to keep doing that, and that's okay too. It really is. You don't have to be a leader, although, if you've got leadership experience, that's always valued by employers, but you don't have to go there if you don't want to. And also, let's talk about training. Let's talk about certifications. What kind of certifications or training, additional training, do you need in order to get your last job? So in that end state at your retirement party, what do you need to have as far as certifications or skills? Now, I'm a big fan of Coursera.com. I believe it is founded by an Ivy League school, and I've taken a bunch of courses from Coursera. You can do a lot of them for free, and if you need the certification that you can actually put on your LinkedIn, for instance, it's like $50. It's really cheap, and it really gives you a tremendous amount of training and skills. So I recommend Coursera. There are other places too. When you think about online training, I probably wouldn't say that Udemy is one that you'd want to use for career training. Udemy is almost like hobby training. I do have a lot of Udemy courses that I've paid for, but I wouldn't call them certifications that you could put on your LinkedIn profile or your resume. Although Udemy.com is, and it's UDEMY.com, or Coursera.com is probably my preference. Okay. Now, if you're aiming to get into a different industry, I do want to make a mention that you don't have to pile on the certifications. You don't have to have a lot of certifications. You also definitely do not have to make a step back in your career. A lot of people mistakenly think that if they're changing industries, they have to take a step back and work their way up again. That is not the case. In fact, it's easier for you to find a lateral or a higher move in a different industry than it is to find a job or land a job that you are overqualified for, because people don't want to hire overqualified people for the most part. So think about how many years of experience that you have in that function that you're doing and want to do, and what they're going to need. So a lot of times it is much easier to get something that you're highly qualified for rather than you're overqualified. All right. Now let me go down here. All right. So then don't think in terms of job titles, because a job can be called something different in different industries, or even from company to company. I know I worked with someone not too long ago that was a chief happiness officer. Now, that was a West Coast title, but chief happiness officer is a title, and it's kind of a customer experience officer somewhat. So don't worry about the job title, also because you don't know what size company you're going to be at your end state, unless you've got that specific that you want to be in a smaller company, you want to be in a larger, more established company. and there are pluses to minuses with each of those. There's not anything that I would recommend over another because it depends on what you want to get out of your own career on purpose, okay? So then I would want you to make a list of the boxes. When we talk about making those boxes, I would want you to do that for your next role. So what do you want the next role to check as far as your boxes? So if someone offered you a job, you want to make sure that they're checking all of your boxes, not that you're trying to check all of their boxes. Because if you're trying to fit your square peg into their round hole, it is not going to be a good match. However, if they are helping you with your perfect job, helping you get as close to possible of that, and also think about the boxes you need to check in order to move you forward in your career and close those gaps between where you are now and where you want to end up at your last job, okay? And think about this. It's a mixture of what you do best, in other words, your natural strengths, and the responsibilities that are going to stretch you and set you up for success in your future roles. Again, making it toward your end goal, all right? And again, I got a lot of words here, but it's because I want to give you this context so that years from now, you can open up a PDF and see all of this and you know exactly what to do. Because you may find that your goals change. In 2 years, you may be looking at a completely different level, all right? So I would want you to list the qualities that you want in your next employer, in your next company. That would be a great fit for not only the skill sets that you have, but also allowing you to stretch and grow into your next role and giving you the opportunity to build that experience that you need to move in that direction you want to take your career. All right. Again, with the end goal being the North Star. That's your North Star that you're trying to get to. And it's all what you need to do in order to get to that North Star. All right. So that is the presentation, and we are 40 minutes in. So I want to know, I'm actually going to put up a poll. Let me see here. All right. So I am putting up a poll that I want you to answer. Please, has this helped you to clarify your career path, including the role that you are currently hunting for or that you want to go into next? I would love to know. And so far it's 100%, but you never know. That could be just one person. So I would love to know if this has helped clarify both the end state, but really more than anything, I wanted you to think about a career on purpose. What does that career on purpose look like? And what do you have to do in order to make that happen? So I can see now that we've got a few more people. It's really, you need to do those exercises. So I hope that really this has served you and that you've gotten something out of this, especially on clarity for your next job. I just have noticed that when people if people are ambiguous about what they want to do next, it takes a long time to get there. And you may have heard, I don't remember exactly who it was. Was it Robert Frost that said, I don't remember, who was it that said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. Well, you don't want to do that with your career. You want to build your career on purpose, really. So also, I want to thank you guys for showing up, even though you got an email saying that I was sick. It's not true. I'm not sick. And I really appreciate, I had so many people send me thoughts and prayers last week. So thank you very much. I just had a stomach bug. Was not anything serious. I just could not be this bubbly self. I don't know that I was bubbly today. All right. Okay. And Lacey, if there are any questions that come up that you want me to answer, go ahead and put them in chat and Lacey can give them to me on my phone. I can let you know. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and I am going to look at the chat. Let's see. So Mara says, for CV and LinkedIn profiles, the recruiters are checking on the title, not by role and functions, makes it more difficult to get a job at your next level of career move. How do we overcome this? That's a very, very good point. So recruiters, of course, work in the best interest of the company, not in the best interest of you. And here's what I've found. Recruiters want to immediately put you in a box of this is what you're qualified to do because this is what you're doing right now. You will rarely find a recruiter that will give you the option of looking up. In other words, they don't want somebody that's done the job before and that can do the job next, possibly. They want somebody that has been doing that job for many years. The thing is, why would you move from one company to another and doing the same stuff different day kind of thing? It doesn't make sense. So recruiters hold about 11% of all of the jobs out there. So spend about 10% of your time each week really working with recruiters or reaching out to recruiters. I am not a big fan of working with recruiters, especially as your main source of trying to search for a job, simply because they will put you in that box very, very quickly. And that's not a fun box to be in. You don't want to be defined by what you're doing now and what you've done in the past and who you do it for. You really want to be defined by what you're capable of doing in the future, what you really can do that will stretch you, but also that you will be successful at. So my answer is don't spend a lot of time with recruiters because there's really no way to get around that. That's who they are. That's how they work. All right. Oh, so Lou says Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland. I have no idea what you're talking about. You're talking about what I said. I don't know that that's the main source. Although I'm going to look that up, Lou. I'm going to find out if it was the Cheshire Cat that said originally, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. I do believe he said that. I just don't think he was the first person to say that. All right. Let's see. All right. Any other questions? Any other questions at all in the chat? Do you want to put that down? I would love to be able to help you. And you know what? If it's a short presentation today, I am really cool with that too, because I'm sure you guys have other things to do. So I will give you guys maybe, let me see if there's anything else. Okay. Looks like that might be it. Okay. That is it for me, guys. I'm going to be doing these live streams once a month. What I have considered doing is putting up recordings of live streams or maybe sending out links to recordings of past live streams if that's something that you think would be helpful for you. If it is, let me know in the chat. I would really like to know. As well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you what, one moment. There we go. I'm going to take that off. All right. I thought Lou was calling me a Cheshire Cat, and I was very confused because Lou doesn't usually call me names. All right. So I really hope that this has served you today. Hopefully that this has given you some clarity. And let's bring these files. Let me share. Let's see. All right. So now I have put the live stream, Building Your Own Legacy, put that, the PowerPoint that you just saw, I put it into a PDF and you can get it from the sidebar here. So also let me know in chat if you think it would make sense for me to send out a past live stream once a month in addition to the live stream that I do at the beginning of the month. And under normal circumstances, it's going to be the first Friday of every month. All right. So I will let you go, guys. And if you have questions, let me know in here. And if not, I will see you next time. And I really appreciate you showing up. And if you're watching this later, I appreciate you watching this as well. All right. Thank you, guys. Have a great rest of your month. I will see you first Friday in October. Bye now.